Well, welcome everybody to my channel, and I have a super special, exciting Grimdark surprise. I have managed to get the fabulous Mark Lawrence to join and come and talk about his new book. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Hi, it's so lovely to have you here, and you're a truly special guest. You're a golden gem in my collection of authors because so much of my channel is to do with Warhammer. But you and I get to talk about your new book, Daughter of Crows, which is fabulous. There are lots of my viewers really enjoy me reading the grimdark because I really struggle with the grotesque and horror. But what no one realizes is that you raised me because my first grimdark book, I think apart from the Robin Hobb stuff, was Prince of Thorns.
Okay.
So you gently kind of coaxed me into the darkness. But yeah, I would love it if you could tell me a little bit about your journey to becoming such a fantastic fantasy author. You've written quite a few different collections of worlds and book series. And yeah, how did you get to do this?
Well, I mean, one thing I should say is that it's great that you read Prince of Thorns. I think is my 19th or 20th book, and really I think Prince of Thorns and the two books that went with it were the only books I would call grimdark that I've written. Um, but it's the nature of the beast that many authors, when they find something that works, they stick with it, and so they're often characterized by the first thing that they write. Which is a bit of a two-edged sword I've found, because like I don't consider the great majority of my trilogies to be grimdark.
Mm.
Um, this book, Daughter of Crows, definitely is, but I feel it's the first time in nearly 15 years that I've gone back to that particular area of the map. So yeah, I like to wander across the map.
Mm.
Um, and if you were to look at trilogies like, I guess, the Library trilogy, which was my previous one, and say Impossible Times, that was a few years back, but those are not really dark in any way, other than in the sort of general fantasy sense that, there might be a sword here and someone might die, but they're not, what I would call grimdark. Whereas Daughter of Crows, Prince of Thorns, yes,
Yeah.
I'll admit they're pretty grim.
I think the problem
Um,
is you're too good at grimdark. It's like it's such perfection. It's such a celebration of the grimdark genre because you have an expertise about, the gritty, grotesque, all of that. So I think, unfortunately, you're skewed talented when you do dabble in the grimdark.
I mean, it's kind of you to say so. But when I wrote the Broken Empire trilogy that started with Prince of Thorns, and when it came out and people were going Abercrombie this, and
Mm,
I'd never read any of these people. The only author I'd read who was anything like grimdark, and I don't think he really is, was George Martin. So I'd read Game of
mm,
Thrones, the whole series up to that point, and that certainly did inspire me to take a darker path, a sort of more gritty path. But I
mm.
think that George Martin is covering such a huge swath of characters and relationships that it is not. He has high points, low points. He has nasty people. He has nice people. Um, yeah, so I don't really consider him to be grimdark, and um,
Mm.
I just wrote this, and the inspiration for Prince of Thorns was A Clockwork Orange, which was Anthony Burgess, sort of in the
Oh,
early 1960s.
oh
So
yes, the
again, I
Droogs.
wasn't. Yes,
So your gang are the Droogs.
they are indeed. Yes,
Oh my
and
gosh.
he does. I think he does say, "Oh, my brothers," and maybe possibly, "Oh, what's it going to be then?" Like early on, as a sort of nod to that.
Yay! Oh,
Uh,
I love getting those little behind the scenes reveals. That's fabulous.
but yeah, I certainly didn't think I was part of any sort of current trend, because I wasn't aware of any such. I was, really going back 40 years to a very different inspiration.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, how did I get to write books was I don't know if it was an unusual path. I was doing lots of other things, being creative in my sort of spare time. Originally playing D&D at school, running play by fancy play by mail games when I was doing my PhD. Um, and I guess when I moved to America, I had to stop running that play by mail fancy game because I became slightly more busy. So I started writing short stories instead because it was a sort of similar creative outlet, and that just turned into longer stories and books, and
Yeah.
uh, kind of got bullied into sending them into an agent, and very surprisingly, it turned into a book deal.
Well, I thank goodness that they did because I mean, I've read Game of Thrones and I just found it so brutal. I'm a bit of a softie. I'm a bit of a unicorns and clouds person. So the first death in Game of Thrones, I thought, oh God, I'm not going to enjoy this. And then I didn't get past the first book, but I love fantasy. And then when I got hold of Prince of Thorns, I hated so much of the actions, but I couldn't stop reading because the writing was like, and I remember being up really late and looking at the clock and thinking it's 2 a.m., but I need to know what's going to happen. So, yeah, but thank you for sharing your some early as inspirations.
I mean, it's my understanding, because you do a lot of Warhammer stuff, that Warhammer was where the term grimdark came from, and that
I know.
Warhammer is not, is it not full of sort of terrible things happening and lots of battles and such like?
It is. I mean, they would be really lucky to have you for the IP mark because it's a set in this endless war where there isn't really anybody good, and the Imperium of Man is this soul-crushing empire that's stretched across the galaxy, and there are horrible demons that get up various people and cause them to act heretically. And I feel I kind of got tricked into it. My friend, we had a book club o over COVID when one of our gaming clubs closed down. And we were reading some really great things, Octavia Butler and Ursula Le Guin. And then I thought, well, we could invite authors, and we invited an author along called Dan Abnett, which
Okay.
started me reading Warhammer. And my friend Ian, who has a really big Warhammer YouTube channel, convinced me to start interviewing authors because I'm really curious. I'm a kind of a writer myself, and yeah, so I kind of stumbled into the grimdark, and now I'm trapped there. So, but that's why I'm saying having you is such a treat because I came to you naturally. I wasn't frog marched to you by Space Marines. And I wrote down, I met you through Prince Georg, which is quite a lovely introduction. I did wonder if you were aware of 40K. Has it? I'm a D&D player and on the peripherals of 40K. Have you ever dabbled with a Legion or rolled
I
anything?
have not. No, I think it sort of came to prominence after my time, so to speak. As Games Workshop turned its name into Warhammer, which kind of upset me.
Me
The
too.
first game, the first Games Workshop opened about 100 meters from the school that I just started attending in 1977, and so I got into D&D. But by the time I think Warhammer became a sort of semi-mainstream,
Mm.
I kind of was too busy for D&D.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to have a word with Sir Ian Livingston when we next see him about that. And and so could I just ask, because I'm really nosy, what was the name of the postal fantasy game you were playing?
Saturnalia,
Oh, okay. Lovely. Yeah, I
quite
mean that's
a
my
fantasy one that was
yeah. It's
run in England from the. I think I signed up as a GM there in 1987, and it kept going for about. It may still be going for all I know, but
Mm,
yeah, it's kept going for decades.
that's so lovely. I mean that's kind of my archaeology, I guess. Um, Same as you, D&D rather than anything else. Um, so we should probably talk about this book, which I really loved, and I'm very grateful I got an early copy. It was everything I wished it to be. So I was coming out of the library trilogy, which was quite different vibes to this. And I
Oh yes.
wondered, yeah, if you could tell us a little bit about the inspiration for this book, because I love books and libraries, so I was like so at home in your library, and then to be whisked to this new universe was jarring but exciting. So, what was the
Yeah,
inspiration for this book?
it certainly is a very different book. So, and that's kind of been my modus operandi from the word go, where I would make hard right-hand turns from one trilogy to the next, which, when you're hoping to keep your readership with you, is probably not a sensible thing to do. But I get bored easily, so I like, and I write unless I'm entertaining myself as well. Um, I tend to have a character as an inspiration or an idea, and then write a book around them. And so it's not that I sort of look around the world and become inspired to write about a library or whatever other thing you can associate with previous trilogies. It's a person that I would write about.
Mm.
And frankly, after sort of 19 books published and a bundle more written, uh, and I don't like to repeat myself, so it's quite, I'm looking for a character who's not like the other characters I've written before. And I was aware of people saying, "Oh, women, especially older women, don't get enough representation in fantasy." And I kind of just thought, well, I'll pull their bluff. I'll try and write one and see if people actually come and want to read about them. So I thought, I would write about an older woman. And then when I got started, um, it seemed to me, because I was wanting to write about, and this is like the sort of background theme. So when I say what I'm writing about, there's murder, mayhem, and adventure. Um, but the background theme is what I wanted to write about was an older character, and
Mm.
then the process of aging. And I guess one of the reasons it interested me is I am becoming old. I turned 60 recently, so I wanted a character in that sort of ballpark. So she's in her 60s, but because I was talking about aging, it's much easier to talk about it if you see the person at various ages rather
Mm.
than just, I mean, you can do it, you can just dive into their head and sort of talk about memories and things, but it's more entertaining if you actually get to see it. So, and I've always used, when I do single, I generally do a book from a single point of view, and one way to generate uh, more movement, because like we were talking about George Martin before, and he bounces around the
Mm.
map and visits all sorts of different places and gives you this overview of what's happening. With a single point of view, it's harder to do, but if you have several time streams, if you have the person now and the person as a child or whatever, or typically in my books, because I'm dealing with someone young, the person now and the person 5 years ago, you can have them in different places doing different things that are complementary, and it
Mm.
effectively gives you an extra point of view. Um, so that's what I did here, and then that enables you to just bring into a tighter focus the effects of the 50 years or so between the two points of view. And in due course, will, because it's got this triple goddess aspect. It's on the front cover.
Mm.
The sort of maiden mother Crone will get the mother stage as well coming in.
Oof.
So I want to cover, the whole of a life. But yeah, you can put what's happening now in your 60s in tighter focus if you are able to show in an interesting way, which tends to mean live,
Mm.
happening before you. Your childhood experiences, for example.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was such, firstly, yes, yay to writing for older women. I'm a decade behind you. I'm 50 next year. And I thought it was brilliant, the fact that, her besties were these two other elderly ladies, and her priorities had changed. I mean, you know, seeing her in her kind of what should have been a dotage and how she got there. But it also allowed for a really clever plot conceit, which is where, and I'm sorry for anyone reading, there may be spoilers. I'll try and keep things vague, but when you're going back in time and you're reading about these girls, it's not immediately evident who is who. And so
Yeah,
it's it's like an extra layer of intrigue. And you have to be patient and allow all the strings of the tapestry to show the picture. So I really, really enjoyed the process of the back and forth and the different locations because it was kind of like an extra mystery that we got to walk through and untangle. That I thought that was really, really clever. And it's it seems like a so whenever you do decide to go into a new world, Mark, it's so wholly realized with such a mythology and, maps and, for example, we have the kindnesses and there are a very strict set of rules for this organization. There are established gods and types of necromancy and magic going on. And on top of that, you then give yourself this, well, I'm going to withhold this bit of information and we'll have to do. And I always ask my authors, do you have a bunch of red string and postcards? And
Yeah.
how the heck? Because there were so much little mysteries that untwirled and unfolded. And I was thinking, I'm barely keeping up with this and I'm loving each reveal. How do you safely tuck all those little secrets in? And how do you plan for this? And the pacing as well, because you've got to you've got, your first, second, and third act. Sorry, I did warn you I would fangirl at you, but there is a question in there somewhere. How the heck do you do it? I guess. Yeah.
Well, I always upset interviewers at this point with a very short answer, which is I make it up as I go along. I don't plan
No,
my books.
that's
Um,
impossible. How? What? No.
well, I mean, I feel that, well, I always say, and it's true, is that, you takes me the best part of a year to write a book, and so and I'm doing it most days. And when I'm not writing about it, I'll be spending some time thinking about it as well.
Hmm.
And so it kind of fills your mind, and I haven't got anything else to do, though I guess I did have a full-time job for quite a few of my earlier books, but then it was all circulating when I should have been doing something else at work. Uh, and yeah, so because it's all I'm doing, it's
Yeah.
a lot easier to have all of these things in mind and hold on to them. And a lot of the time, I just throw some stuff out, and this is the gardening metaphor. Um, and I know from experience at this point that after I've written 100 pages and just been that there will be plenty of opportunities to sort of tie this bit to that and to just sort of say, and it just all falls into place, and it's kind of feels a bit like magic. But I've seen it so often now that I guess I'm a bit blasé about it. But
You're one of
it's
those,
just
and
fun joining.
so you were
It's
going to
just
say,
fun joining all these pieces together. That's all.
yeah. So you're one of these annoying authors with an innate storytelling brain, which is fabulous. Uh, I mean, it's frustrating for me because I like to pop people's heads open and then eat the brain soup. But I wonder, I
Well,
guess,
I think we were talking about the Play by Mail games that I ran, and
yeah.
before that the D&D, and both of those things are storytelling, but they're storytelling where you have other people involved. So
Mm.
you've got your D&D players, and with the Play by Mail game, which had thousands of players, hundreds of whom I was looking after, and they would write their turns into me, and I would write what happens, so that I'm writing a story, but the other person is just every time sort of throwing me a curveball or sending it in a wild direction. And so I sort of learn to roll with the punches and make it happen, make it work, make it interesting. So I guess
Wow.
maybe that was part of the training.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe that definitely, what a wonderful training ground. And so your subconscious kind of like learn to, and well, not anticipate, but learn to work with what was ever thrown, and then you could sculpt it back. And when you're holding these worlds in your head, like, does it push out everything else? Is it like, will you be just trying to do a thing and something will pop out? Or have you ever been working on a story and you're letting it come and then something's really surprised you? Or you're like, oh no, I don't want that. I don't want that thought to have come and now I'm going to have to write it this way. How does it feel?
Not like that. um, I mean, I certainly do have uh, notebooks, and I will. Um, I find often you get good ideas when you are doing something completely unrelated. Often, if it's a kind of boring or repetitive thing, I'm walking. I won't say it's boring exactly, but I'm walking the dog around the park. Or in the
Yeah.
old days, I used to have an allotment, so I'd be digging the potatoes. And when you're doing that sort of thing, when your mind empties a bit, then ideas roll into that sort of empty space. And then you want to sort of jot them down if you can. So that's why I was saying when I was doing my full-time job, I was accumulating ideas during the course of the day, and then when I came to sort of write them down in the small of the night, I might only have an hour or half an hour to type. But you can type a lot in
Mm.
a short time, and because all of the ideas are already in place, then you can do as much as maybe I can now do across the course of a whole day because the ideas don't come any faster. So if you've got more time, you just sort of waste time.
Oh,
Um,
love that. I love the thought of, a day's work and then when you come home, quickly catch everything and make it into a book. Oh, that's so
yeah,
lovely.
I used to cycle as well to work and back again, and it was it was like half an hour. But on that cycle journey, when I'd finished, I would always have something to write down quickly before it escaped me because you're not doing much with your mind when you're cycling.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your process. And, I think, again, it's to our benefit that you have this superpower. I really, really loved Rue. And one of the things that I love is with many of your lead characters, they're not always, suppose going back to Jorg as well, he was such an anti-hero. And Rue herself is, fairly, there's been skullduggery and, assassinations in her lifetime. What do you like about making these anti-heroes the heroes of your books?
I think they're just so much more interesting. It's not like a criticism, but in many fantasy books, the main character is literally a hero, and
Mm.
they're pretty blank. They're there as a kind of avatar for you to project yourself onto. And in order to allow you to do that, they have no real distinguishing characteristics. They do the right thing. They're brave. They're honourable. But there's no heavy luggage there because if you were to sort of make the point that I don't know, they really like the taste of so and so, or they're afraid of kittens or something.
Yeah,
People who are reading say, "I'm not afraid of kittens," and would find it harder to project themselves into that.
yeah,
And there's a different style of writing where it's not that you want the reader to project themselves into a character and then explore the world and have an exciting adventure. It's that you want the reader to look at that character and for that character, discovering that character to be part of their adventure with the book. And it's just a different way of doing things. I've been reading a lot recently because I've been going to and fro to the hospital on the bus, and I tend to do most of my reading when I'm traveling. So traveling gives me a lot of opportunity. And I'm reading a book at the moment, and it spends almost. And I was just noticing how different it is from the one that I'm currently writing. It spends almost no time in the heads of any of its characters. It's simply telling me what they're doing, a little bit about how they feel about it, afraid, angry, excited, but almost, I couldn't tell you anything about almost any of them, maybe one
mm,
or two facts. And yet it's a good read because, it's exciting and there's people fighting and there's interesting magic and a plot is developing. Um, and if you were to spend a lot of time in their heads, it would slow things down.
yeah.
Um, and if it's not interesting time being spent in their heads, you would kill the book. So if you are going to spend time in someone's head, it better be interesting time, and it's more likely to be interesting time if they're a complex person with
Mm,
various struggles and various sort of opposing urges and some sort of issues going on.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely sometimes it's so frustrating because you give your characters a trait or a disposition and you can see them rushing into trouble but because they might be too headstrong or proud, or, in Rue's case, revenge is at the top of the list. But it does make for a much more interesting read. And I was so surprised that you make me. I'm really on the side of someone's that that is quite a baddie, in a black and white sense. So yeah, I quite enjoy being whisked away with the baddies, and I really love that once again because we've had Nonna previously, but you give us these fantastic groups of amazing women characters. Especially, I spend so much time in the 40K universe, and there's always controversy whenever any women pop up in that universe. They introduced female custodies fairly recently, which is a type of chapter, and I had to come off the internet for a couple of days because it made some people very angry. So I love that you deliver fantastic female characters. I was impressed by, and I often am because you've written about convent before, but the very naturally written kind of female bonding relationships between young women, and now those kind of in this book when we get to see the characters at older ages, this kind of crabby interaction where you've known someone for a lifetime, and just how well they're written. They feel really truly authentic. And I wondered what drew you to, outside of, I guess, well, we needed more stories about older women. Where did you find that skill for writing female characters and making them feel so well-rounded and heroes of the story?
Uh,
Well,
it-
sorry, another big question. And
well,
I guess the cover is the Furies, it's the women as well. So yeah.
yeah, I mean, in a sense, it's a kind of minefield to answer that,
Yeah.
just because it's an area that so many people have so many diverging opinions on. And thank you for saying I wrote them well, but I'm sure there are people who also would say that I didn't. When I wrote Prince of Thorns, I got an enormous amount of stick for there being so many men in it,
Mm,
and it wasn't like a sort of you know that I was set out to write a book with no women in it. It was just it has women in it, but um, it was just I didn't feel I was having to sort of meet some quota. I mean, there are books
mm,
with lots of women, there are books with very few, and there are books with an even mix. But I didn't feel every single book had to have that mix, and it just felt appropriate for the story that the mix was what the mix was. And I thought to myself at the same time, if I were to have written a book set on a submarine, then they'd probably all be in the 1940s. They'd probably be all men. And
yeah.
if I was to write a book set in a convent, they'd probably be all women. And it felt right that the nature of the book should determine the sort of spread of genders inside it. And that was one of the reasons I wrote Book of the Ancestor the way I did, just because you set it in a convent, they're all women.
Yeah.
People going to come after me for now writing a book with not enough men in it, and some people do pursue me on the internet saying it's about time you wrote a male main character and you've gone woke and all this.
Welcome to the
But
woke ranks, Mark. We love having you here.
so as I said, I get bored easily. So another reason I wrote the Book of the Ancestor was because I had never written about a group of young women before. And it felt a bit scary because I didn't really know how to do it. But I had also been listening on repeat with my disabled daughter. She got very addicted to the Malory Towers audiobooks
Mm.
and would insist. She always wanted someone there to listen to them with her. So I could give you the dialogue from all like seven or whatever it is of those books, complete, and they're sort of set in a posh 1940s
Yes,
boarding
I
school.
remember the outside swimming pool and the midnight feasts and Daryl and the poetry
Yeah, yeah.
teacher. Wow.
And
Yep.
they have four towers, so it's quite Hogwarts related as well because you join a house and
Yeah.
um, but it's sort of girls being mean to each other and also
Mm.
so I guess in some sense I was sort of channeling a bit of that with Daggers,
Yeah.
but
Love that.
I, I mean we live in the world, and if you pay
Mm.
attention, which I hope most writers would, you see people of all ages
Mm.
and all types, and you keep them in your mind, and you know how they act and how they are. And when you come to write about any particular subset of them, you just sort of draw on what you've experienced and do the best you can.
Yeah. I mean, I really loved the expressions. I think of the generations and um, the caretakers of all the girls, the kindnesses, and then the way the girls regarded themselves when they looked back at their younger selves. I found it so touching. It kind of made me feel very bittersweet and yearning and heartbroken because it echoed, as I've transitioned through and I think back and I have like a set of there's four of us. I have three really good girlfriends that we were school girls together. And yeah, I thought it was really a really beautiful added extra, those gorgeous relationships and how they were written. So yeah, just want to say thank you for that. That was a true gift to read.
That's part of aging as well. It's not
Yeah.
just the sort of losing your hair or turning grey.
Mm.
It's what you lose, what you hold on to, and that's in relationships as well. In terms of friends, in terms of opinions and desires. There's a whole gamut of things to write about, but often the friendships that you do or relationships you carry through with you, those will change in character as well, um, and or not change, and both of the both changing and not changing are comments on aging, which,
Yeah.
as I said, interested me.
Yeah, I loved the way that this had that element of being a book about aging, but so heavily disguised. It meant a lot. I appreciated it.
Yeah, it's not literary fiction. It's not a sort of deep contemplation on age.
Yeah.
It's I can't stress this enough. It's murderous magic mayhem,
Yes.
but
Well, yeah, let's
there is
go
a
into that.
undercurrent.
I'm taking it too literary, but I try not to read anything before I jump into a new book. And I was really pleasantly surprised by the deaths actually not being deaths, that there was something the other side of them, and the opposing kind of magic systems and the various push and pulls of like the deities. And I think that again speaks volumes to your world building and how you kind of pull these new, well, I guess they're new mythologies out, but these are kind of related to old mythologies. So I was picking up on the kind of the Greek myths. So we have the Furies, and then there's a lot around forgetfulness, and we visit the River Styx, maybe, where, and you need pennies to kind of get across. So, I mean, I was thinking, God, I wish I'd paid more attention in classics. I'm sure I've missed so much. I recognize the name Megara, but I couldn't tell you the connection there. Were you enjoying like dabbling with Greek mythology and pulling that into your world?
Yes, I've done that before as well. So uh, I guess I'm repeating myself to some degree there, but this is focused on the Furies, and the uh, the names, of the Furies in the book are just drawn straight from Greek mythology.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of borrowing from a variety of past religion and myth. And there are reasons for it, which I won't go into, but yes, and there's this central thing of the triple goddess, and we see in lots of different mythologies that there are uh, triples of female
Mm.
semi-deities that and they'll appear across the spectrum, and I'm sort of using the conceit that these are all sort of shadows of one central triple goddess,
Yeah.
in various aspects.
Oh, okay. Yes, thank you. I mean, I'd love to ring out everything, but I know that would probably spoil me for later installments. And it was so funny. I got on the train back here today and I sat next to somebody reading a Terry Pratchett book, and it was one of the witch ones, with Nanny Ogg and Margaret, and the three of those, and that maiden
Yeah.
mother crone thing. It's such a fantastic trope for fantasy. I really, really enjoyed that. We also have a crow companion in this, which you've got to love a talking bird companion. And obviously, there is a lot of death in the book. Um, there's lots of like omens and things like this. So it's obviously also called Daughter of Crows. Where did the crow come from?
Um, well, it wasn't called Daughter of Crows when I wrote it.
Oh, what
I
was it
because I
called
was
when
using
you?
because I was using the triple goddess, this maiden mother crone, but also maiden mother hag.
Mm,
I'd called it hag, which was to me a sort of a nice punchy sort of
yeah.
grab your attention, and it fitted, maiden mother hag, and I was going to work backwards, so I was going to have hag mother maiden,
Mm.
um, and marketing did not like that. So I have in the past fought battles to retain titles that I liked and marketing didn't, but you never really want to have a fight with marketing because they're the people who sell your books.
Yeah.
Um, so I let them have this one.
Mm.
And in response, I just hopped through the book, and I didn't add the crow companion, but I did sort of just make a few more mentions of crows, just so it wasn't like out of nowhere.
Oh, that's
Where did
gorgeous. Yeah, I mean,
where
I
did
I
the
love
crow
that
companion come?
responsive writing, I think they call that. I mean, it put me in mind of one of my favorite books is The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle, and there's a butterfly that kind of pops up and has some fantastic lines and is like a companion for moments in the book. I really love the symbolism around so much death and carrying messages from beyond, even beyond the afterlife, and being not only that, but also being a guiding vessel for a goddess. So I thought that was a fantastic character.
Yeah, crows are. I mean, crow companions are, and it's not original. They're in many books. Like, didn't Neil Gaiman have one in his
So,
the Sandman? So
oh, yes, yes,
the
yes.
Lord of Dreams has his crow companion.
Hmm.
Um, I had read a book by uh, Shauna Lawless, Children of Gods and Heroes, which is very good, and it had a sort of a crow companion in there, not of the main character,
Mm.
um, but and it goes all the way back. Like we got Odin with his two crows,
Yes. Yeah.
memory, and we got yeah. I just it fitted because I have another of the triple goddesses aspects that comes into the book is the Morrigan, and the Morrigan is either the Morrigan singular or she has three aspects, and again she's often associated with crows.
Yeah.
So that's where it all came from. It just felt fitting.
Yeah. It links together beautifully.
And,
Um,
and as I'm making this up as I'm going along, so I make up that she starts the story because the chapter got slightly shifted around, but she started the story when I was writing it, emerging from this mass grave.
Mm.
And what you're going to have in graves, you're going to have carrion birds, and so
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
it just kind of how do I make this crow interesting? Well, and it just rolled on from there.
I mean, it's a fantastic opening. I mean, talk about Grimdark. It starts in like a pit of bodies, and the crow's like, I think I was just eating a human eyeball, but here I am. So I was like, I get the tone. There's this wonderful humor throughout, which, Rue's very wry, very dry humored, especially in her later years. And, Crow is a good sidekick to her because they wouldn't normally have necessarily have been friends. So it's like a nice odd couple vibe. So I struggled. The only bits I found really hard to read, and not in a bad way, just because it was so almost horrific, reminded me a lot of 80s kind of scary suspense horror novels that I used to read, which was the boarded up mansion with the scary night daddy and the daytime dad. And I was thinking that a lot of your protagonists have got really traumatic family backgrounds, and particularly the parents, that we never see, even when we get, there's a brief moment of respite where we think potentially Rue has found a sanctuary or a safety. And even then, we discover there are no good parents in this universe. Like, talk to me about your childhood trauma, Mark.
I don't have any. I've got wonderful parents, um, but not all parents are wonderful. And I guess it's more interesting if they're not.
Yeah,
Uh,
certainly.
y- Nice, well-adjusted families are very nice, but they're often not the best stories to tell. They're
Yeah,
not sort of
this is true.
can't be mined for all sorts of interesting trauma and motivation if
Mm,
you were
yeah,
raised in a loving environment. So yeah, I guess that's the be all and end all of it. Just that it's more interesting, and also it certainly there's again Jorg Ancraft in Prince of Thorn. Well, he actually had a very nice mother, but
mm.
she tragically died. But his father was let's say not the best.
It was
Um,
not a very nice man.
and it allows you to, in Jorg's case, for example, to have a debate about whether it's nature or nurture, because he is a terrible individual, but was he a terrible individual regardless, or was he
Mm.
a terrible individual because of what was done to him as a child,
Yeah,
or is it a mix of the two? So it allows you to have that nature versus nurture and to just muddy the waters, because again, if he was just a terrible person and there was no reason for it or no potential reason for it, it would be a less interesting story than you. Is it really a question that's asked to the reader?
yeah.
What do you make of this? Is it his fault? How
Mm.
much of it is his fault? If he commits a crime at a very early age, does it stain him for the rest of his life?
Yeah,
If he did something terrible at age 2, probably not. But where does that stop?
yeah.
Um, and for Rue, who is not nearly as nasty a person as Jorg, potentially not nasty at all, depending on how you judge her. Um, she has an even worse childhood,
Mm.
and turns out to be a better adjusted person, but not a well adjusted person.
Yeah.
And it's just again a similar question, but different circumstances.
I mean, I really loved watching Rue battle with her past. And in fact, the past comes kind of knocking at her door, trying to hunt her down. And then the same time we watch her becoming the hunter, training to be the hunter and possess this power to go and be a killer. And there's never really a moment in the book where anyone is safe, it's like this perpetual kind of chase. Rue's kind of going after her revenge, but at the same time trying to protect someone she loves. And at the same time, when she was little, she was constantly being hunted and running around and trying to escape. So I thought that was it was a very adrenalized read. There are no moments of like, and then they all sat down and had a lovely relax, It's a barrage, which I really appreciated as well. Yeah, it's so funny. In my notes, I wrote, let's talk about the trauma. As a dad yourself, do you have to grit your teeth when you're writing about horrible dads? Or you're just like, well, this is all fantasy.
I think, I mean, I am to some extent emotionally affected by parts of books that I write,
Mm.
but it tends not to be the sort of, I guess, yes, yes, I am affected by them. I, but it's often the sort of once you really get to know the characters, and then they have moments, and those moments might not be as dramatic as the ones that we were reading about at the beginning of the book, but because you then hopefully everyone. writer and the reader have developed a relationship with this character and understand them better,
Mm.
then I think sometimes you actually get more emotional over a smaller thing than a sort of a big thing early on, because you have to earn it. Um,
Yeah.
and in a sort of non-grim dark, non-fantasy book, a good writer can get you terribly emotional about really small things, just sort of a cool word from someone that the
Mm.
person should have been supported by, or something of that nature, can really sort of reach in and stab you. Um, and so it really doesn't matter if it's sort of they exploded my dog in a sort of grimdark sense,
Mm.
um, or they didn't invite me to their party in this sort of more normal book. If it's done well and you're attached to the characters, you you tend to have this similar sort of level of response,
Mm.
because it's the worst thing you can imagine in the setting, but it's
Yeah.
consistent with the story being told.
Yeah. I do get a feeling when reading that you hold the creations, your characters very tenderly. And it's that kind of softness around the edges that makes them hard and them, you know, adventurous and villainous, but also makes us care so much. So there's some kind of like transfusion when you're writing them, maybe. I mean, we should say a lot of this book is held in a kick-ass academy of wannabe assassins, and the girls are sassy, they're funny, they're clever, they have so many, interesting and unique personalities. One of my favorite characters was Sharp, and I absolutely fell in love with her. She's just completely brave, headstrong, outspoken, funny, daring. And then we meet her later on in life. And, we were talking about embodying aging and stuff. And specifically, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there are themes around memory and, making people think certain things were one way or not really. I'm skirting around, anything too spoilery. But yeah, at the end, when your memory might not be as reliable when you're older and stuff. So seeing her presented, I think one of my favorite conversations in the book, I mean, if you don't mind me reading at you, which I know some authors absolutely hate.
I hate doing it myself, but I don't mind someone else doing it.
Okay, phew. Yeah, there's just this really smart conversation. Obviously, my mum did suffer with memory loss, and it felt so real. Tamanga said it was a whatchamacallit, a metaphor for guilt. The whole clean thing, Sharp mimed, washing her withered hands. Oh, so you remember Tamanga all of a sudden? Who? The doors to the main corridor open, saving Rue from answering. And then the next section is a character introduces themselves. My name is Mina Redman. And Sharp says, I remember you. Sharp pointed at him. Rue puffed dismissively. You don't remember what we ate for breakfast. I do, Sharp insisted. Bacon. It was porridge, says Rue. And it really kind of captures that kind of frailty of memory. But that's kind of a microcosm of various plot things going on. And I just thought that was so clever. It was like memory inception almost. And and moments of memory coming back, the timeliness, how to, and also this other layer of weaponizing memory or pushing memory down. Did you know that that was going to become a big theme? Because, I
It's a
mean,
theme in all of my books, to be honest. I've always been interested in memory, um, and really, it's all we are. I mean,
mm,
we are in this little now, but everything we are in this now is predicated on what's
who we
happened before and what we've chosen to hold on to, and how we've constructed ourselves from the experiences we've had, which we can't
mm,
possibly hold on to any um, significant percentage of that stuff that has happened. And
mm,
so we're forced to sort of make choices about what we keep and build ourselves out of. So um, I've always been interested in, and had as a sort of theme, like in the library trilogy, the library is a sort of racial memory.
mm,
And in Prince of Thorns, certainly the second book, King of Thorns, he has a little box and he puts some terrible memories in it.
Mm,
So that's sort of looking at editing your own memory and how it can change you. And
mm,
um, obviously, with the aging thing, dementia is uh, a loss of memory, which means a loss of self, um, and a very profound sort of insight into how memory constructs us. So yes, and then like very on the nose, the one sort of branch of the magic in this book is concerned with memory and the
mm.
ability to take memories and sort of just throw them away,
Yeah,
um, and whether that's a good idea or not, and what the implications are. So yeah, it's very interesting to me.
yeah.
It's interesting when you look at yourself and think, clearly I don't remember everything that's happened to me.
Mm,
How much of what's happened to me do I remember?
mm.
It's I could talk endlessly about these things,
Oh
and
gosh. I
try
wish
not
I
to, but
I wish I'm going to have to get you back so we can talk about the theme of memory throughout your whole output. I would absolutely glory in that. I think as a reader, it gives us a bonus of, yes, we know there are unreliable narrators, but what if the narrators don't realize that they are being unreliable because of what has happened to them, and how the story can change if and when memory is restored? So it's again, I mean, you already give us such a wide world and all these different characters and difficult different, I just made up a word, different magic systems. It's just, I really loved that. I thought the depth of it was so good, and and I can't wait to see how it all ties in and evolves. I'm terrified, in fact, of what's coming, which I think is always a really, really good sign. So, did you have a favorite character to write? And were there any you struggled with, or were you like, oh gosh, I have to write this person, I have to make them likable, or yeah, how do the characters live with you as you write?
I mean, I again, one of the reasons I bounce around between characters when I do is because I need to keep myself entertained when I'm writing. So I'll write this many chapters with one person, and I'll think, well, I've had enough of this. And when people ask me, what's my secret of pacing, it's simply that when I've had enough of writing it, I change to something else, and I hope that that sort of matches the reader's desires too. Um, so
Excellent.
yeah, I enjoyed them all for different reasons.
Mm,
And when I wanted some more of young Rue, I would go there, and
go
when I wanted
back.
some more of old lady Rue, I would go there.
Do you ever write any of yourself into any of your characters? Do you ever put any of your own thoughts or expressions in secretly?
I mean, when I first wrote, when I had one book on the shelf, and the main character Jorg, was fairly extreme
Mm.
and a guy with many reasons not to like him. I got what a lot of soap opera villain actors get, which is, you get people who are on EastEnders or something, and they're walking down the street, and some old man accosts them and says, "Oh, you shouldn't have left so and so, or you shouldn't
Yeah.
have taken that money," because they confuse the actor with the character they're
Mm.
playing. And when I wrote about Jorg, I got a bunch of people saying, "Oh, you know, you must be exactly like this person. You must be a terrible person because you have written a terrible person." And it's such primitive thinking to
Yeah.
discover among readers of all people who should be, among the most intelligent and insightful section of our society. Uh, but and the only real answer to them was simply that, having written like dozens of characters, now I can say, well, am I this little girl over here in a girls' school? Am I this old woman? Am I
Mm.
this cowardly? And the answer is obviously, in all of those cases, I am using my experience and our sort of shared humanity, and I'm putting in, taking things, emotions and experiences and feelings that I've had, and putting them through the filter of who that character is and using them, but none of them are directly me. Like with Jorg, I mean, we all know how to be angry. We all know how being angry feels like. So when I'm
Yeah.
writing him being angry, I just take my own stuff and twist the dial up to 11 and then rip it off and throw it out the window. Um,
Yeah. Thank
but
you.
um, yes, I put a little bit of myself into lots of characters and a lot of myself into none of them.
Yeah. I definitely saw a lot of myself in Rue. Not the obviously or only the good traits, only the good traits. But the kind of like the retrospective nature and the gaining of empathy and the yearning for kind of found family and then what her previous betrayals meant. I thought it was yeah, it's a fabulous kind of it was a really interesting journey to go along with her. I can't believe we're almost at our hour. Mark, I think I could talk to you for days. So I will choose a last few questions. I suppose we get to visit the afterlife a little bit in this. I was kind of pretty intrigued by it. What do you think happens in the afterlife? I mean, that can be in both ways. Like, I mean, I guess I'm kind of hoping for a maybe a hint of what will happen in the next book, or we could talk about your thoughts on the afterlife in the real world, whichever you please.
Sadly, my personal thoughts on the afterlife are um, not particularly exciting or encouraging. I was a research scientist for a long time, and there's lots of religious research scientists, but
Mm,
but I kind of cleave more to the what the science tells me, and it tells me that this is it. It has
mm,
no meaning, and when we're done, we're done. Emotionally, that's very hard to wrap your mind around,
yeah,
and I think like a lot of people in America, the worst thing they could say about you is you're an atheist, and it's worse. They'd rather you be sort of something they hate, um, but they kind of understand in religious terms than be non-religious,
yeah,
and they'll say, if you don't believe in God, why would you be good to anyone? Why don't you just go out and murder and rape and
yeah,
it doesn't work like that because
yeah.
even though I feel intellectually there's no meaning in the world, emotionally I'm just like everyone else, and that's what guides me. So I will love my children and you know jump in front of a bus to save my little girl
Mm,
just because that's the way I'm built. In in the books, I created various afterlives. Um, and generally speaking, I model them in that they have been created to meet the expectations of the people who visit them. So
mm,
I think the Red Queen's War, Prince
yes.
Jalan and his friend Snorri go to hell, and
Valhalla.
they're both in the same place, but they're experiencing it very differently.
Mm.
So they're seeing different things and hearing different stuff,
Yeah, that was
which
so
allows
clever.
and I guess in the Daughter of Crows, the underworld is um, has a Greek flavor to it. We're
Mm.
crossing this river which we call the Styx, and we're taking. And she says, that the person who comes to take you across the river will depend upon what you expect of them. But she's expecting Charon in his ferry and to give her coin over for the
Yeah.
passage, which is what she gets. So yeah, I tend to say that the afterlife will meet the expectations of the people.
Yeah. Well, I'm very excited to see more of Rue's afterlife. Rue can have as many lives as she needs, as far as I'm concerned. Let's just keep it going. Have you finished, or are you amidst future books for this series?
So normally when I have a trilogy coming out, I have written all of the books of it. That's the standard thing.
Wow.
Um, I think possibly with the library trilogy, maybe I was sort of like halfway through the third book when the thing came out. With this one, I have been slowed down this year by lots of unfortunate
Hmm.
medical events in those around me. and also when I did finish the second book and I got my beta reader to read it, um, she had far more things to say about it than normal,
Mm.
and so I am listening to those things and taking remedial action, which combined with these medical crises has meant that technically, I guess we could say I have written enough to fill book two and a part of book three, but I'm not yet sure how I'm going to
Mm.
arrange them. So I'm in that unusual position of not having finished the trilogy before the third book, the first book comes to the shelf.
Oh wow. That's going to be exciting and terrifying as you see what people love about this book, and then you have to decide whether to listen to that or stay true to what was in your brain initially. And I mean, I would fold. I'm a people pleaser, so
I generally don't listen. I have ideas for what I want to do, and I will go ahead and do them.
I think that's the right way to do it. Otherwise, you end up in a real pickle. I mean, I always feel so sorry for Patrick Rothfuss because everyone has an opinion on what should happen, and gosh,
Yes,
I
that
can
would be an
understand.
unpleasant position to be in.
Yeah, gosh, petrifying. In this old sense, the Gorgon sense of the word petrifying, just to be cast in stone. Um, Mark, I can't tell you how grateful I am that you have come to talk to me about your book. I absolutely love your authoring. You're one of my faves, and I don't know how you do it. I think you're a fabulous talent that we're lucky to have, a British talent, in fantasy. And this will be our goodbye. I'll say goodbye to you now for everybody watching in YouTube land, and then I'll say goodbye properly afterwards. But Mark, thank you so much for being with us. Is there anything you'd like of the viewers to know about what's coming up or what to look out for? Or should you just tell them to go and buy Daughter of Crows?
I think, well, yes, by Daughter of Crows, that would be very nice. So it's a lovely book.
It's so pretty. It's
Um, it is so
gorgeous.
pretty. Less pretty inside, but it's a beautiful cover by Tom
Messy
Roberts, who's an
inside.
incredible talent. I do have a second book coming out this year, in I think Octoberish. It's called The Bookshop Book, and it is associated with the Library trilogy as standalone. So
Ooh.
uh, there's that.
Oh, that's really good to know. I would love to pop back there. I'd love to come out of one of those pools in the library. That reminded me so much of one of the Narnia books.
It's the wood between the worlds.
The Wood Between the Worlds. Oh, all
That's
my
why there's a guinea pig that turns up at one point.
yeah, yeah, that's why. Oh, Mark. Just when I thought I couldn't love you anymore. Well, we'll do our official goodbye. Mark, thank you so much for being on the channel, and I hope we get to have you back again soon for your next book. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Bye. Okay.